Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Welcome back, Sixers. This is episode 88 of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, and today is July 19th, 2021. I'm Bill, and I'm joined, as always, by my transcendent co-hosts, Amy and Jordan. Welcome.
Hello.
Before we get started, we want to remind you that the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is not a spoiler-free podcast. That means if there's something in the Cosmere you haven't read and you're worried about hearing spoilers, you might want to go read those first, then come back and join the discussion. Tonight, we're sort of doing a survey of characters. We're looking at the information that Brandon has given us on the Heralds and where they are now, and then perhaps making a few speculations of our own based on what we know. For those of you who listen to the podcast recordings or watch videos on YouTube, we'd like to remind you that it's possible for our listeners to interact with us live via chat as we record each episode at www.twitch.tv/InkeepersTable. We record episodes of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies every other Monday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, so please join us and take an active part of the discussion. The Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is made possible by the support of our listeners and patrons. Our show will continue to be free, but if you want to help us out, head on over to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies. Even pledging a buck or two per episode really helps out as we work to improve the show. Patrons get immediate access to our Discord channel where you can talk about the show and the Cosmere with other listeners. We've got a great community. We've got a lot of great discussions, great people. It's just an awesome place to be. You also get early access to bonus episodes, exclusive access to other bonus content, and other good stuff. This week, we want to thank our new patron, The Secret Searcher. I don't think that's what your mother actually named you at birth, but I could be wrong.
Also, were we supposed to say the name? Are they no longer a secret searcher? Are they the not-so-secret searcher now?
They're the secret searcher. I don't know if they search for secrets or they secretly search.
These are the questions that just
you got to be exact. Do you poison the dragon or just the liver? Wow, bedknobs and broomsticks reference. Okay.
Yeah, I'm so lost. If you write a review this week, we need to know if you actually know bedknobs and broomsticks references.
Dude, it's a great movie, okay?
I haven't seen it in forever. I've forgotten that reference, but I love the movie.
I only know the name.
They find a bottle that's labeled poison dragon liver. And the kid says, do you poison the dragon or just the liver? And
that is a really
they're
important...
not really sure.
Like, there should be some instructions on that.
Indeed. All right, so guys, the Heralds. This is a big one. This is there's so much meat to this, and there's so little information, and there's still a lot of information, but we know nothing, and there's a lot to speculate on.
Yes.
Yeah.
But first, I kind of want to do a little mini brag, because this weekend, I was at part of a Wandering Game Night that happened to be at Dragonsteel HQ. So there are the amazing pieces, the art of all of these heralds that shows up in the books. I got to see the originals, and they are gorgeous.
How big are they?
They're big.
Yeah.
They're like 5 or 6
large.
feet
Yeah.
tall. They're big.
I'd say 4 or 5 feet probably.
4 or 5? Okay, sorry.
I could be wrong on that.
I didn't want to get too close to anything like that.
It's a weird perspective thing because they're hung up higher, but so I don't. But I think 4 or 5 feet or so.
Yeah,
they're big. But yeah, I love those depictions though because they're in-world iconography type of art. You know the in-world artists have made of these essentially deities. You know, these are what plaster the Ardentia, you know.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of awesome one that Brandon just has those in his place.
Yeah. Jordan, did you want to take charge on this? Because you were going through and pulling the notes together. So.
Yes. So this was spawned...
We'll let you take the lead this time.
Yeah. Okay. This was spawned by a very specific post that I ended up seeing, but we'll get to which post that was later. So I dove in and tried to find everything I could about the Heralds that we could find. There was an article posted by Alice... what was her last name? Arneson. Alice is one of Brandon's beta readers. I just read her byline here. Is a Sanderson beta reader, mega fan, and occasional theory crafter. She takes great pride in the moment at Emerald City Comic-Con 2018 when, in conversation about some disputed fan interpretation of a scene, Sanderson said, "You're right. Just tell them I said Alice is always right." So she wrote I think this was before, let's see, this was May 21st, 2020. So this is before we started getting the...
this is before Rhythm of War.
Yeah.
Before Rhythm of War.
And before all the preview chapters as well.
Mm-hmm.
And she did everything we know about the Heralds. So this is one book late, but the information in this is good.
It's
wonderful.
So good.
And thankfully, a lot of things that I was going to have to look up myself, she has already collated.
It's just there.
And I like that. One of the things that she talks a lot about is the madness is different for the Heralds than the mundane mental health issues we see in a lot of the characters like Kaladin or Teft or Shalon.
Right, yeah. Brandon's been very clear that they're all mad, but there is more to it than just...
It's magic.
There is a
madness.
magic aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this quote from her here in this article she wrote, and this is all in our show notes, and I know a lot of people don't, look at the show notes for obvious reasons. This is one I think might be worth grabbing it, because we have links to all these things here.
Nice, good links, yeah.
Yeah. As Ashen became the Tranquiline Halls in legend, so Braze became Damnation, and it seems to be well named. Though the Heralds were made cognitive shadows as part of the Oath Pact, they still had bodies which could suffer torment. And of course, the Fused and the Voidspren figured that out. With both Fused and Heralds bound to the same planet, it became a vicious game of hide-and-seek. Once a Herald was found, the torture began. Helped by one another's strength through the Oath Pact, the Heralds withstood the torment for centuries before one of them broke and agreed to a return. Once that happened, all were freed. Fortunately for humanity, the movement took time, and the Heralds were able to return first and began preparing for what was known as a desolation. I had never thought about the actual mechanics of what happens when they get to Braze, but the idea of it being a hide-and-seek game until, just to avoid capture, because once they're captured, then comes...
Good luck, yeah.
Then comes the unpleasantness.
And
it's
a whole planet, and it's a big planet, so...
Well, and it says something about the Heralds, like, at the initial phase of things, that it used to be there were hundreds of years between desolations. And if any single one of them broke, the whole thing starts over. And so at least at the beginning, all of them were of the type of, toughness, mental fortitude, or whatever you want to call it, that they could all withstand torture for decades at a time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So these were some pretty impressive people.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Well, that's the tough thing about an Oath Pact being... The desolation happens when one of them breaks. And so it doesn't have to be... it doesn't matter how strong... they're only as strong as the weakest link, essentially.
Yeah.
And
see it seems like they got weaker and weaker as it went on because they'd been broken once, so they broke easier and easier and easier, so the desolations got closer together.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's just interesting. So what do we know? We know that their badness is magical in nature. And in particular, it seems they're breaking in such a way that they're turning into the opposite of what their virtues are supposed to be. It seems that way. We're seeing a lot of parallels to this, and that's the actual theory that Alice is proposing here. That the nature of everything is causing them to break opposite of who they are. We also know that Hoyd offered to teach them a way to store memories so they don't have to hold it in so much.
He offered. Remind me when it said that he offered to teach them that, because he talks about it in his.
It's Kalek says it in.
That's right.
His
in his epigrams.
Yeah,
that's right.
And
that's right.
Then he's like, "Why would I want to remember?" Then this was quite serendipitous for us. Literally at this point, 1 day ago, a Reddit user by the name of RoboTJP12 wrote a Reddit post on the Cosmere subreddit. Why are the Heralds insane? And it got the ball rolling on a lot of discussions that I found very interesting. But most importantly, a user named Ha2 just brought in all the words of Brandon about this various subject all into one spot, which made me very happy.
Hatu is actually very active on the Cosmere subreddit.
Yes, he is.
Has been pretty good with bringing in references from my experience.
Yeah, and so I'll just bring in this first one here. The person asked Brandon, the Heralds seem to be insane in the ways of their divine attributes, at least somewhat. Is this because they're Heralds? As cognitive shadows, they're subject to people's perception like how Spren are? Brandon responded, that's a very astute question, and yes, that is influencing them quite a bit. I'm doing something here with the Heralds. Like, I want the Heralds' madness, as we call them, to be magical diseases, and the contrast of something like Kaladin's depression, which I'm trying to treat very real world. I'm trying to treat them as these things that couldn't exist in our world. They're fantastical mental diseases, like we have fantastic physical diseases in Elantris. So I did make them thematic, and I would say part of the reason is that people's perception of them and their mental state is reacting against that, and that should be a theme amongst all the Heralds. And then Hatu responded to all the words of Brandon he posted. He posted like 4 or 5 of them. And this is what he wrote, and I really liked it. I think the main cause of the Herald's madness is that the dissonance between their cognitive and spiritual selves. Since they are beings made of investiture, like Spren, their cognitive self is affected by the people's perception of them. They are viewed by Rosharans as perfect demigods, embodiments of honor off somewhere fighting for them in the Tranquiline halls. But their spiritual self is not that. They are fundamentally flawed, formerly physical humans who broke the Oath Pact and whose spirit web has been cracked through their many lives and deaths. The dissonance between the two caused the symptoms of their madness, and a major symptom is that they have trouble making decisions because everything they do would either go against who they are, their spiritual self, or who they're thought of, their cognitive self. And then he goes into examples of this. And then this final point was the one I really liked. The reason they get better when an oath is sworn nearby or a perpendicularity is opened is because at that moment, there's a conduit to the spiritual realm nearby, so their spiritual, cognitive, and physical selves can harmonize or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's I like the theory that it's the reason they're going opposite is because they're trying to sort like this. It's sort of a reaction against how they're viewed by the mortals that are worshiping them. And
you see that especially with Shalash.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shalash?
She is very distinct.
That she's very much trying to destroy her
about
images and everything. So
and tells people, do not worship us. And and you almost wonder if it is them trying to sort of come to an equilibrium on some level, and that's why they're going so far in the opposite direction of who they were.
Yeah.
So I wrote up all 10 heralds. I didn't go in the traditional order of, the counting that they have. I sort of went in order of either ones we either know most about or ones that we can't speculate as much, or ones that we can speculate the least on to the ones we have to speculate the most on. Kind of. Anyway, so we're starting with Talonel, Herald of War, Patron of the Stone Wardens, the Soldier. Virtues, dependable and resourceful. The theory doesn't really work with him, actually, and that's why I want to start.
Well, he's also the one that didn't break.
Exactly.
So it's very likely that he isn't going mad the same way just because he didn't break the Oath Pact.
Yeah, he's currently muttering his mantra. He had that one lucid moment when the Dalinar opened the first perpendicularity with the clap.
Yeah.
That very first time. And then he had that moment where Ash is telling him to hate her. He needs to hate her. And he's like, this is so wonderful. And it just rips your heart out. And as depressing as some parts of these books have been, I am terrified for how depressing and sad Talon's book is going to be in the second half.
It's going to be rough.
Or Ash's. Because those are the two whose flashbacks we're getting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We don't know which one's just in the back set.
Yeah.
Brandon's laid out a potential order, but he said it could change.
Yeah, so I mean, it's very flexible.
So some have can't remember where it was. It was in one of these threads where someone put out the theory that Talon and Shalash were romantically involved.
And she says it in her article too. Like she's sitting there going, "Yeah,
was that her article?
It was her article. She's like,
I have a hard time keeping this
she's
straight.
like the way they interact and the things they say, you know, and how Ash is trying to take care of him and everything. She's like, if that's not a relationship, I don't know what is. That totally screams relationship.
Yeah.
So,
but
and I'm like, yeah, I could see that. I could ship it. So
the other reason that Talon's is probably going to be a hard book, that's right now speculated to be book 9.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And typically the next to last of anything isn't a happy story.
It's rough.
What was Rhythm of War a rough book for anyone?
No.
But yeah, currently he's in Yurthiru with Shalash. And he withstood torture for 7,500 years.
Long time.
He is, as I say, an absolute unit.
Yeah, and like, what is it? There's a comment about he was the really good soldier and stuff, and we see Ishar, and he like wipes the floor with people, and you're sort of going, well, if Ishar's is like mid-level, then I don't even want to know what Talon was like when he was at his prime.
The thing about Talon is he was also one of the original inspirations for the Stormlight Archive. In the Way of Kings. Brandon's concept was a guy who, he was supposed to be a viewpoint character from the very beginning. And I think he is. I haven't read Way of Kings Prime yet. I need to.
Oh, I haven't read it either yet.
Essentially, it's a guy who wakes up thinking that he's this ascended deity or this returned deity. And there's actually a lot of question in the original one of, is he actually a deity? A lot of Dalinar's madness came from that, or Dalinar's questioning it himself, wondering if he was mad, kind of came from that as well.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember that being hearing that was a thing in Prime.
All right. So, anything else on Talon?
Oh, there's all sorts of other stuff on Talon.
Yeah.
But I mean that's the basic rundown on him.
Yeah, and this almost any one of the heralds, especially the ones we know more about, we could almost do whole episodes on them alone.
You mentioned that he's only had one lucid moment. He had a second one very briefly when he caught the dart.
That's right. I forgot about that.
I did too.
Where somebody shot a poison dart at, was it him and Dalinar?
Yeah, something like that.
And he like caught it, and then he just sort of looked at his hand like,
that was all instinct.
I almost wonder if it's just instinct, like Jordan just said, that he's just like that much of a soldier that he just does it.
He kind of, it looked, I think Dalinar noticed like a little bit of something in his eyes. Now, he didn't have a conversation, but it was just sort of a
glimmer or a moment of
there was that one moment.
So our brains have a couple, obviously they're complicated, but there's two types of vision. There's sort of what we call pre-process and post-process, where we have all our instinctual stuff is based on the pre-process, and that's all when you react to something before you even really know what it is, that's your instincts, your danger stuff, the lizard part of your brain.
Right.
And then post-process is the stuff that we see. It's why you see sometimes blind people do things like there's a famous thing where some people are conspiracy theorists that Stevie Wonder isn't blind, because there's a thing where like a stand was like a mic stand was dropping and he caught it, and they're like if he was blind he couldn't have seen that. But his type of blindness is it's not damage to the eyes, it's damage to the part of the brain that is cognizant of what you see. So the instinctual part of the brain is still getting that information. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people, I think that's actually the more common form of blindness. If you're a doctor and you're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, I apologize. This is just what I'm trying to remember.
Please let us know.
But yeah, and so they'll sometimes do these things where it's like, they should, and so that's why I think what Talon was doing is, even though he's quite broken and insane, danger happened and the instinctual part of his brain just went into its training.
But again, and Bistromeyer in chat says it was Murray shooting at Amorem, which now that he mentions that, I remember it.
Oh, that's right.
He did there again. There was like a moment of recognition, and so, but yeah. So yeah,
number 2.
Yeah. So next up we had was Jezrien, Herald of Kings, patron of the Windrunners, the king. Virtues: he was protecting, leading.
And he was literally a king, from what I remember.
I think weren't all of them kings except
for
Talon? They were all noble except for Talon.
They were all leaders of some. I think the list is scholars. Nobility, generals were the ones we've seen.
Except for Talon. Talon was a commoner.
Yeah, Talon came in.
He's also the father of Shalash.
Yes.
Jezrien is, yes.
Pardon? He's currently dead, thanks
Very
to
dead.
Everyone's favorite character. We know through Talon's mantra that it was Jezrien was the one that taught humans about leadership at the beginning of each desolation. Mm-hmm. And this is the first one where we see quite clearly the effects of the magical madness. Because where his virtues are protecting and leading, he became a vagrant drunk. Clearly not protecting anyone, clearly leading no one, and actually enabling at least Dalinar's own alcoholism problems, which is I would call not good leadership. Yeah, seems like the opposite.
Poor leadership.
And so, yeah, he's sort of the first one we really got a good look at how messed up he is. And he's dead, and so there's not really much to add as far as where his story could go.
Well, and that's the thing is, he got stabbed, sucked into Moash's or Vyre's knife, and as we talked about in the Kalik, or no, I guess we didn't talk about it in the Kalik, but as Kalik talked about, Jezrien
is gone,
sort of faded because the Oath Pact was broken, his connection to everything was gone, and so there wasn't anything holding him to the physical realm anymore. So they're not quite like Spren.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that Kalak was very particular about was it's like you think you're so clever doing this, but it's not the same thing.
Right.
And so, because the Oath Pact was the only thing keeping them there. Once you sever them from that,
well, and fade. They're also a different kind of cognitive shadow. Because, like, the comparison between them and Spren were investiture that developed sentience. The cognitive shadows that they are were humans that kind of imprinted upon a bunch of investiture. Yeah. So it's not quite the same sort of process.
Yeah.
It's almost an inverse of that process.
Yeah, I did one other thing that was in the Tor article that was interesting is she talks about how he was reported to look pretty young, and they're like, and yet his daughter is like there too, so how does that work? And so one of her theories was that they just kind of stop aging at the Oath Pact. I don't remember if that was confirmed or just a theory of hers.
The thing about cognitive shadows, I mean, if you look at the Awakened, or the Returned, not the Awakened, the Returned from Warbreaker, they look sort of how they feel they should. That's kind
That's
of how
true.
that's kind of how that works. A lot of with Cosmere
Roshar?
healing works that way, and so it's just, and so it makes sense that they could look
How
of
they
similar
feel like
ages.
they want to look, yeah. Because some of them, I can't remember which ones, but some of them look like old men, and some of them look like young men, and it just kind of goes back and forth. Anyway.
Well, the other thing is that, at least in the official depictions, and that, okay, we have official depictions, but remember the official depictions are in world, and so they're not
So-
necessarily accurate. Because, for
yeah,
example,
they're,
if you look
they're
at,
in-world artists depicting the people that they are worshiping.
but if you look at Jezrien, he looks Alethi. His daughter Shalash looks Makabaki.
And her hair
She
is
looks
glowing,
Azish.
literally glowing white. So
White. So, yeah,
Well,
it's...
That's not beyond the realm of possibility. I mean, we've seen the royal locks.
Yeah.
So
but it's definitely not her hair when we see her in the story.
Yeah, she has black
Like
hair.
this
I
is
believe.
religious iconography. There's a lot of things are being exaggerated for the purpose of heightening the virtues that they're supposed to portray.
Embody and stuff, yeah.
Embody, that's the word I was looking for.
Gotcha. Yep.
But yeah. So
Anyway,
yeah.
I just thought it was, she went on a random tangent on that, and I was thought it was kind of funny. But,
But yeah, then
Next one?
was Nail, Herald of Justice, patron of the Skybreakers, the Illuminator. His virtues are just and confident.
I think he has the most screen time, too, that we've seen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
he was the big bad in Edge Dancer.
Yep.
Well,
Darkness. She calls
Yeah.
him Darkness, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And he's not confident at all anymore.
No.
Like
well, particularly after Edge Dancer broke him.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but even before that, he wasn't very confident.
He was putting up a front.
He
confidence.
seems confident. Like he's done a good job of hiding it, but he's not confident. A confident man, because remember, he's a fifth ideal Skybreaker, which is very rare in their order. He is the law. Does he seem like he is the law? No, he's going after he's a rules lawyer. He's going after every nook and cranny. He doesn't trust his own sense of right and wrong anymore.
Well, the thing is, in some ways, yes, he's rules lawyering in order to justify, like,
Yeah.
because he's working within the law.
Yeah.
But like, he's finding people who he's targeting, and then he's finding a way to get
To
them,
make sure
Yeah,
to,
but-
so
to
he can-
justify
he can,
getting them.
But
Yeah.
even the going and getting people, he's not doing that because he thought it was the right thing
No,
to
that's
do.
Ishar,
He went to Ishar and said, "Ishar, tell me what to do."
and exactly, and that is
He made a bad choice.
Yeah.
no, and that's absolutely true.
But yeah, he's clearly not just. A just person actually weighs, the evidence. and
Mercy
the-
and punishment,
Mercy and just
Yeah, and he's completely lost his entire moral center, and and this is something Lift calls him out on. He's dead inside. He doesn't feel things anymore.
except for when she said her oath, and suddenly it actually is very similar to what happened with Moash after Navani blocked Odium.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up because I think there's something there to that idea.
What do you mean?
What happens to Nail is that he loses his internals, like he's dead inside, and Moash has the same thing. Now it's coming from different sources, but they're both these
Is it?
I mean, I would assume Nail hasn't at that point in the story, because he hasn't gone over to Odium's side at that point in Edge.
I don't know that, right, but I think in breaking the Oath Pact, maybe they open themselves up to be manipulated. I mean, Brandon's done that sort of manipulation in the Mistborn books as well.
Yeah.
Not necessarily somebody
hadn't
who's
thought of
chosen
that.
to be in it, but they've opened up a vulnerability.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like Odium's been targeting the Heralds at all. At least Raised wasn't. Who knows what Taravangian might do. But
I'm not so certain about that.
yeah, I haven't seen any evidence for it. This to me just seems a natural part of his magical madness. That someone who's supposed to be.
What I'm saying is the magical madness may have odium as part of its source.
Yeah,
we just don't know yet.
Yeah, but the thing, and I mean, this is definitely in contrast because he's apparently so honorable that Jezrien, who was his enemy in their past life, like specifically, extended him and asked him to join the Oath Pact. We see that when Dalinar reaches out and touches Nail and sees like his, has his life flash before his eyes, and he sees this moment where Jezrien's like, "No, we got to have you in the Oath Pact," and Nail's like, "I mean, I'm very honored, but aren't we enemies?" sort of thing, but showing how much respect they had for one another, despite being on the opposite ends of whatever it was that caused them to go to war in the first place. And now he's not that. He ain't that guy no more. Amy, do you want to go ahead and grab Kalak?
Okay, so we have Kalak, the Herald of the Almighty, patron of will shapers, the Maker. His virtues are being resolute and a builder. So we saw a little bit more of him. He's had more screen time than a lot of them. And he's currently hiding in lasting integrity as of Rhythm of War.
Right.
And he was looking for a way to get out and get off of Roshar. Because,
Not exactly
there's threats to his life. Yeah.
He's also the one whose name Kaladin originates from.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's also, the one we've heard the most people swear. Mostly because of Teft. But
yeah. Teft does it a lot. But so his job during the desolations was to teach humans how to forge and build during the start of a desolation. And so yeah, I mean, and his reverse, taint or whatever you want to call it, like that he's his madness. So he was resolute, and now he can't make decisions because he's a judge in lasting integrity, and he just is not really making judgments, and he doesn't trust his judge. It almost seems like he's just like, well, we're just gonna go with this decision because that's what's gonna make people happy, not that he's actually weighing it properly.
The honor sprint kind of take advantage of that.
Oh yeah.
To the point where he actually kind of does start stepping forward and making judgments. They're like, "Oh, he's crazy. He can't do anything.
Can't trust him now."
Yeah, and so they actually remove him from his role. Oh no, he's ill. He needs rest, and it's just sort of a.
Speaking,
he
of
was a
rules,
figurehead. For them.
They're not helping.
Yeah.
No. Well, and then on top of it, he was leading the Sons of Honor.
Yeah.
Which, now, it's unclear exactly what his own goals with that were, other than getting off-world. And it's clear that there were very different ideas within the Sons of Honor about what it was they were trying to do. But the one thing they were definitely trying to do was bring back the Desolations. Now, again, I don't know if Azra Starry's that was his command, or if that was people interpreting what they should do. We can tell through all the differences that Gavilar and Amaram clearly have very different goals.
Some of them are trying to bring back the Desolations to bring back the Heralds.
Yeah.
And
that's clearly not his goal.
He may have just been trying to piggyback off of it.
Well, or he may
know.
have been, like maybe this is how we get all of the other Heralds back, and we can. I don't know.
Well, the darker interpretation of that, again, I don't know if this is true. He wants to bring back the Desolations because if the war ends and Odium escapes, so can he.
The other thing
to be self-preservation, yeah.
Right. The other thing to keep in mind about Kalak is he was the last person to know about the whole plan to break the Oath Pact. He's the very first viewpoint we get in this.
Second to last.
He was the last of the ones who broke the Oath Pact to know. because he's the first viewpoint we get, he shows up and it's Jezrien that he talks to at the Circle of Swords,
Yes,
right?
it is.
I think so, yeah.
So, he shows up and Jezrien tells him what's going on. He wasn't part of the decision.
He was just kind of told, well, here's a decision. You need to just do
Which
it.
again, he is a judge. He is resolute. But he wasn't actually part of this decision. Now he absolutely 100% went along with it. He fully admitted, oh, they're all broken. He didn't realize that everybody else had broken as well. But you sort of see him. He shows up and doesn't really know what's going on until everybody else is gone already.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and you just if you reread it, you can see just how worn he is, and he just And when finally, like, it gets brought up, he's like, "I can't do it again," and then Jezrien tells him, "That's fine. We've got a plan.
Yeah, we're all not doing it again. We're putting it on Tom.
We're done."
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be very interesting because now it seems he's whether it's through the fact that he's improving or just through the fact he really has no other choice, it seems like he might be helping Shalon and Adolin with their whole trying to go find Ba-Otto Mishram before the Ghostbloods do, which, the Ghostbloods and Sons of Honor have been shown as opposites or not opposed to one another the entire time. So could just be convenience.
It could be, but you also think about it. It was never officially confirmed. I think that Shalon, in admitting that she had killed her first Spren, that was her fourth ideal.
Yeah,
which could have been a thing that triggered again, gave him a brief moment.
A moment of it could be.
Yeah,
I think it's very, very likely.
I'd be shocked if that's not one of her truths, because that's a heck of a truth.
That's
when you think about it, every one of her truths has been, I killed this person. I killed my mom, I killed my dad, I killed my Spren.
And would that only be 3, though? What was the other one?
Well, the
Life
first
Before Death.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That one, yeah.
So he's going to be very interesting going forward. I don't know what his role will be, but he's telling them, free Ba-Otto Mishram. That was one of the things he said. And so that, which is, release and unmade. That's going to be interesting. That's the other thing that's interesting is the false desolation that Ba-Otto Mishram did her voodoo during comes after they abandoned the Oath Pact. And it's clear that because that was just that's what the bondsmiths came up with as a plan, and the Knights Radiant executed it back then, but this wasn't the Heralds who executed this plan. But given how it affected all the listeners, or the singer, I don't. Given the fact that it affected the singers and affected the sibling, I wouldn't be shocked if it also had some sort of effect on the Spren, because there weren't Deadeyes before this. I wonder if it affected the Heralds as well.
It's possible.
There's no reason it wouldn't trickle down or trickle up or trickle sideways or whatever to them too.
Whichever direction they are in relation to Ba-Otto Mishram.
I'm not sure how that works.
This flow chart is not very well made. Let's be real.
No.
My personal speculation is that the Unmade were originally similar to the sibling. And
I could see that. It's looking more and more like that to me too.
Yeah. Because we saw Raboniel unmaking the sibling.
Yeah. Another theory in all this research I found proposed the idea that, because we know that Roshar predates Honor and Cultivation showing up.
Right.
That she might be I forget a splinter of Adonalsium.
It's possible.
And so it's one of those things that I don't know where to go with that information, but
the thing
it's
is,
interesting.
Roshar predates it, but we don't know about the unmade predating it. I don't think the unmade do
Exactly.
predate it.
No, but
We don't know if they came with odium or if they came with honor or if in cultivation
or if they
where
predate both of them.
No,
Yeah, we don't know where they came
my
in.
personal speculation is that there were 10 siblings, and 9 of the 10 were unmade.
And then you have the sibling who's left. So yeah, I could.
Which is why there are 9 surges that the
Fused get.
the fused can access.
Yeah, there's definitely something going on there.
Yeah. We just don't have enough information.
The next one. Let's see. Shalash. Herald of Beauty, patron of the Light Wardens, the artist, virtues creative and honest.
Yeah, so we've seen her a few times. She's shown up in a few of the interludes, and then she was mentioned as one as well in one of our favorites when Mim shows up and is talking about Pom, who was Shalash. She destroyed a piece of art that Mraize had.
I love
And then
it.
she was so worried.
I love it from Mem's perspective there, just because, just training the new girl, da 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 da, and then also she just hears us.
What did you do?
Oh no, we're so dead. And then Mraize is like, great, this is awesome.
That's why I love Mraize as a villain. He's so much fun. Anyway,
Oh man, he's scary.
I love affably evil people in my books.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she is currently in Eurythir. Well, she is in Eurythir. They went with the army.
Yeah, they went with the camp because they might need information on Ashar.
Right. Her scene with Taln in Oathbringer was absolutely amazing. Speaking of moments of lucidity, it's heartbreaking. And she seems to be willing to help, but very jaded about how worthwhile anything is going to be. And it seems like she's probably willing to help for Taln's sake.
Yeah.
There's also a whole lot of speculation that she is going to be a Dustbringer, which I am full on that train. Mainly because of the 10 books and the 10 viewpoint characters, we've already had a Lightbringer. We don't have a light weaver. We don't have a Dustbringer. But also she's destroying things. She's yeah. And the Dustbringer's mantra is I will seek self-mastery, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, I think it's very likely that she is going to be our Dustbringer.
Which is weird to wrap my head around, but it works.
And because Brandon has been very, very clear, Nail is the only one who actually joined his own order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not required to join their order. None of them were in their orders. She's the patron of the Light Weavers, but she has sort of gone down a completely different path than she was in. The fact that she's going to be one of our viewpoint characters, I find very interesting.
Yeah.
Because Taln, okay, we can kind of understand because he's different from the other 9 heralds because he's been, he never broke until finally after 7,500 years. And honestly, it's not even entirely clear whether he broke. He probably did, but
we don't know.
But it's a lot of people speculate that he did, but we don't know for certain.
Well,
but
now
Shalash is
she's the daughter of Jezreel. She's a princess.
Yes. And she's just lost her father. That's the other thing that's, so she's in a rough spot right now. Like when Vyre stabbed Jezreel, she lost it.
Yeah, I heard.
And so
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see where she ends up.
It'd be interesting to see who she was as well, because that's going to be... Cause this is the thing. Jezreel is the one, at least from looking at it from the perspective of that pseudo-flashback we got, the very brief one. Jezreel seems to be the ringleader of this group. That while Ishar's the one that knows all the details, Jezreel is sort of the one who gets everyone together.
It seems like I know there's 10 of them, but in the 5-man band, Jezreel is the leader and Ishar is the lancer.
Yeah.
And
I can see
then,
that.
so, to me, the fact that he brought his own daughter into this, if they knew the full extent to what they were agreeing to, I don't think a father would sign his daughter up for torture upon
I suspect
torture.
that he didn't. I suspect because she seems the type who would have done it against his will.
I'm also. We don't know who her mother is, do we?
No. We don't even we know so little about their
Yeah, I mean, I'm
past.
just wondering, since there's a couple other female patrons that are heralds that we don't really know much about. I'm curious if her mother is one of them, or if she's just somebody.
I suspect we would have had some indication by this point.
Yeah, so it just makes it's interesting to me that we don't have any idea about her mother. You know.
Yeah. Well, cause she's obviously the most opposite of, she was the artist. Now she's literally destroying art.
She's destroying art. Yeah.
And honesty, and she's using disguises and subterfuge,
and she's
which
lying,
do fit with Lightweavers. But
yeah, it was like it works with their stuff. Yeah.
But yeah. Next up, and this guy's almost guaranteed to be a future episode unto himself, Ishar, Herald of Heralds, patron of the bondsmiths, the priest,
Dr. Moreau,
your virtues pious and guiding, forger of the oath pact, and the pious one is now calling himself God. Yeah. That seems to be a little bit of a blasphemy for someone who's supposed to be pious.
Yeah, he is absolutely nuts.
Yeah, he's gone a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
But he's also incredibly powerful. We found out that he was fair to middling as a warrior when it comes to the Heralds. And he just slaps Dalinar around like a child.
An entire squad of Windrunners.
The Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies does not endorse slapping children around.
No.
Not even.
Just making that clear.
No, and then we see the weirdness of he binds them to the ground, and their stormlight starts seeping into Roshar itself, and he almost steals the bond with the Stormfather and Dalinar's whole contract and deal he has going with Odium, and
and like the Stormfather is just like, whoa, what's happening? Like,
this is not okay. What's going on?
Well, the thing and it's an interesting concept because Brandon has talked. A lot of people have asked Brandon, could you use hemalurgy to steal a Spren bond? And Brandon has said, yes, you could do that, but bonds are voluntary, so the Spren could break it if they wanted to. The Stormfather was worried because he said, I would have been bound against my will. It almost sounds like he wouldn't have been able to break that bond, which differs from. So this seems like more than just.
I'm thinking it's probably because he's the bondsmith patron. So that's my guess. Is so he's got.
Well, he has the honor blade.
And he has the honor blade. Yeah, that's the other thing.
And then that's the only reason he's able to use it. Like he wouldn't have had those surges without the honor blade.
And he spoke no oaths. He's like the phrase they used, a bondsmith unchained. Which is scary. The whole point of a bondsmith is that they've sworn these oaths and they bind things. It was stated in the actual words of Radiance. One of the lines is basically the heralds, defended humanity. They went to a desolation for a couple, I think it was like over a millennia the first time. They came back. The first one was. Yeah, and then they came back and there were Knights Radiant that these humans had figured out how to make the Nahal bond themselves. And it was Ishar who basically got them in line and made, an order out of them. Talon actually refers to the Knights Radiant as Ishar's Knights. And it said basically, I can't remember the exact line, I'd have to go find it. But basically he said, you're going to bind yourselves in these ways, or like I'm going to rend you asunder type of thing. Like this was very much like, no, you're going to be doing it the way I'm going to tell you you're going to do it, because I'm not going to let you do it otherwise. So he did it through almost sheer force of will. He forged the Knights Radiant and put these rules around them. Why would you need to put these rules around them? Well, these are the people who were on Ashen and saw it, get destroyed by irresponsible use of surges in some way, shape, or form. And so Ishar's the one who seems to have put the limits on the Knights Radiant, and now Ishar's the one walking around with no limits whatsoever.
Well, the thing is, the Stormfather, he's freaking out. He's like, this should not be possible. Ishar's crazy. The rules don't apply anymore.
No. Well, and
because he's magic
god.
crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and
Scary.
based on what he's been able to do, he hasn't had a lot of evidence to convince him otherwise.
No, he thinks he's pretty awesome, and he's got a lot of evidence saying, yeah, I am awesome. Look what I can do.
Yeah.
And then whatever he's doing with those Spren. Oh, those poor Spren. Yeah. So that's going to be
move
fun.
on to the last 4 ladies.
Yes. So I do find it interesting that we have a pretty good vision of all 5 of the guys, and only one of the girls, and then the final 4 we don't have that much on. So this is going to go through maybe a little quick. Maybe it'll slow down in a moment. Chanarach,
Okay.
So first of all,
I don't know.
okay.
Or if we want to go Hebrew, Hanarach.
We don't know. I don't know.
And for all of my Hebrew-speaking friends, I apologize for that, but just it's the ch.
So her title is Herald of the Common Man, which is interesting. Patron of the Dustbringers, the Guard. We obviously don't know much about her. In Alice's article that we're referencing a lot, Alice thinks that the assassin Lys, the one that Yesna hires in, I think it's Words of Radiance's prologue, that she may be Chanarach.
That's a popular theory that I actually ascribe to myself.
Yeah, her virtues are brave and obedient. Bravery replacing subterfuge and killing in secret. Obedience, now she just goes to the highest bidder.
Yeah, so self-interest, yeah.
Yeah,
interesting.
That's a theory.
And if you look at the depiction of her, she's got a very Celtic look to her.
Yes. Yeah, she definitely.
We'll be putting up the pictures on our social media so you can have references for all the
and they're all available on the Coppermind as well.
So just
they're the ones that are they're the ones that are in the end papers of the Stormlight Archive books.
Yeah.
The really pretty pictures.
But that's all the information we really have on her.
She's the patron of the Dustbringers. And which honestly, it makes sense that a Dustbringer, because Brandon has talked about how the Dustbringers were looked upon as very destructive, and he's also said that's not how a proper Dustbringer is supposed to be. That's just sort of how they've become. We've seen what's her name, Taravangian's
Malata.
Dustbringer, Malata. And she's very, very scary.
And we haven't even seen her do much. That's the funny part.
No, we haven't seen her do much, but you can tell she's on just a razor's edge of like you don't know what she's gonna do, and so you can see kind of a lot of that in for example, if she is Lys, that kind of makes sense. She behaves in a way that you're like somebody who looks in, sees the details, picks things apart. I actually originally thought, before Rhythm of War came out, that Navani could potentially become a Dustbringer, because she liked to look in and see the details, see how things work, pick it apart, that kind of stuff. And her working as an assassin, the way she worked, it makes sense.
But yeah. But that's all the detail we have on her. The next one is Pylea, patron of the Truth Watchers, the Scholar, Virtues, Learned, Giving. The only information we have on her, and this is in 2017, Brandon signed someone's copy of Bands of Mourning, and they asked him to put some detail in his signed copy, and he wrote in there that let me just read it. That the ardent Shallan sees in the Palanaeum, and the Palanaeum is named after Pylea. That the one she sees there is her. Mm-hmm. And if you go and see, I had it somewhere.
You want me to read the quote?
Yes, if you have it, yeah.
She didn't look in Shallan's direction as she turned between two rows of shelves, her lantern's light shining out through the spaces between the books. Lit that way, with her figure hidden but the light streaming between the shelves, it looked as if one of the heralds themselves were walking through the stacks.
Yeah, which is a bit of a conspicuous line for just a random ardent.
But it you never know.
Yeah.
It could be a red herring.
But so the problem is, ever since this one book signing, Brandon's been very cagey about reconfirming it when people ask. Now, part of it is I wonder if Brandon's forgetting which details are what.
Because they're big books.
Yeah, they're big books.
There's a reason that he keeps his own wiki.
Yeah, he has a person for that.
But for some reason he's been cagey about it going forward. Like he hasn't been as adamant about it. So she may not be. He might have changed his mind. I don't know. The other thing is, an ardent working inside the Palanaeum isn't exactly the opposite of learned or giving.
Though, I mean, I like the little theory you have at the end there that maybe she's an evil librarian and she's destroying the books for making it harder to find them.
Honestly, that's what I would suspect, is that she's either destroying or hiding them.
I love the idea of her becoming like the prototypical, not Alcatraz versus the evil librarians, but big, like the caricature that you would see in a cartoon of a librarian, like the petty bureaucrat denying people access to things. And I don't know. Part of that amuses me as an idea.
And in a library that big, you wouldn't have to destroy the books. You just put it in the wrong shelving spot, and it's going to take forever to find it again. It's going to take chance to find it.
You remember Yasna was at the Palanaeum researching all this stuff and having trouble finding it. Yasna is a scholar. She knows how to research and she can't find anything. But if you've got the scholar of all scholars going through and hiding any clue that she might need, it would make sense.
It would make it a lot harder.
Get ready for in book 7, the grand scholar off her between Yasna as they fight each other with the Dewey Decimal System.
Well, if it's anything like Dalinar versus Ishar, as much as I love Yasna, I don't know about.
Hope to see.
Yeah, so we don't have much on her.
The thing you got to remember, Jordan, is it's about the cones.
It is about the cones. I never thought about that. That's a good point. All right, so the final two are the ones that I find the most interesting to talk about. We have Batar, Herald of, we don't know. Patron of the Elts Callers, the Counselor. Virtues, wise and careful.
She's also the only one that we don't have a depiction of.
Yes, we don't have an official artwork for. Taravangian thinks his ardent Dova is Batar. She came to them and told them stuff. He talks about this in Oathbringer, and when in his first interlude in Rhythm of War, he tells his followers, "Don't trust Dova. I've seen some of the other heralds, and I don't think we can trust her going forward." But he thinks she's Batar. Dova helps collect the death rattles as part of the Silent Gatherers, and that thing is a horror show.
Yeah.
The thing is, she could also have been Dova could very well be Palia, because Brandon. That was one of the things that you said when Brandon would get cagey, when they'd ask about Palia, he would keep going back to saying there is an Ardent who is very close to Taravangian.
But that doesn't mean it's Dova. It could be.
Right, and so it's just like we don't know this because Brandon likes to obfuscate this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and this part, wise and careful, doesn't quite match up as the opposite of things that Dova's doing.
Yeah.
But you theorize that it could be Pylea. Alice herself thinks that that she's wrong, that Taravangian's wrong. She thinks that Dova is the next one, Videl. Also, we don't know the herald of what. Patron of the edge dancers, the healer, virtues loving and healing, and virtues loving. That would be very opposite. The silent gatherers are literally the opposite, and specifically the people who get stuck in that program are people who are both terminally ill and have been sort of forgotten by society. It's literally the opposite of what the edge dancers.
Yeah. Oh, it's painful.
So that's Alice's theory on who Dova actually is. She thinks it's
there's
Videl.
merit to it.
Yeah. But I've also seen another theory of who Videl could be. Some people think Liss might be Videl instead of Chanarach, or however Bill said it. Because an assassin would also be the opposite of loving and healing.
And healing, yeah.
But this next one is what actually spawned this entire topic for me. The one I have dubbed the Poop Smith. Because, one, any reference to Homestar Runner stuff is good. Someone, see, who was this? This was Yog Shalapa on the Stormlight Archives subreddit, put out a topic, says, anyone who knows who this mysterious woman is. Then he brings, from Words of Radiance, here's one quote. You were distracted by your drawing, Pattern said. I peeked about. There's a very interesting woman 4 doors down. She appears to be rubbing excrement on the wall. Shalon thought she could smell it. Patterns, he said as they walked. I did not get a good look at what she was writing, but it seems very interesting. I think I shall go and... No, Shalon whispered, stay with me. Then, from Rhythm of War. Kaladin couldn't swoop in and treat every person in this entire sanitarium at once. First, he needed to prove that he could make a difference for these few, such as dozens of people trapped in the darkness of the sanitarium, locked away from the sun, moaning to themselves, or, in one severe case, writing gibberish all over her room using her own feces. Brandon has put this woman in 2 different books, which, knowing Brandon...
Why? Yeah,
that means something.
It's gotta mean something.
Yeah. So the person posted this saying, who could this be? Someone said, probably a herald, and then someone put forth, Videl, according to Town, is the one who trains them in surgery and teaches them medicine.
Which is clean.
Yes, and hygienic. And so the Poop Smith might be her.
Might be Videl.
Yeah. The other thing that there might be a third reference to her when Navani's talking to the sibling and asking about how did you get the span read working. She's trying to figure out what the sibling can do, what tools they have as they're trying to work
together.
Yeah, put everything together. The sibling says there was a woman in the sanitarium who basically her soul was so cracked open that the sibling could just tell her to write and she would do it. And Dab had just got her the span read, and then Navani's like, dang it, I thought that might be, a solution. So that might be a third reference. The final person she could be is maybe the Poop Smith is Batar. Sitting in a cell alone and writing in your own feces seems the opposite of wise and careful.
So yeah, it could be either one. We just don't know. We don't have enough information.
Or she could be something completely different.
Or she could just be, a mad woman.
He may just like.
This is what Brandon does to us.
I don't know. We don't know.
We're
It's
now
too-
looking. It's
too
like
many
the
options.
poop. The poop will tell us.
Oh boy.
Oh man.
Fun.
It just makes me cringe every time.
Yeah.
Thinking
The
about
thing is, the back half is going to tell us of the series is going to tell us a lot more about the Heralds. Brendan said that the first half is, the first 5 books we learn about the Knights Radiant, and that the second 5 books we're going to learn more about the Heralds, which makes sense having flashbacks with Shalash and Talon, because that's, it makes sense just how that all works together. The other ones being Lift, Renarin, and Yasna. And I think Yasna is the 10th book. So, Jordan, you're going to have to wait for
A long time.
Patience is a virtue. Patience is a virtue.
But yeah. So let's move on to a couple of emails that we've actually gotten from our listeners. We'll come back for final thoughts in a bit, though. So we actually got 2 emails recently that were of a similar topic, and it's a big one that we might end up sort of can of wormsing and coming back to in a full episode, but I just want to address these right now. So the first one comes from Dysgraphic Programmer. He says, so I agree with the idea that the first cut on Adonalsium was with the Dawn Shards. I have 2 theories about the second cut. The first is another cut with the same Dawn Shards. So the change quarter, so he's talking about the circle with the 8 quarters. Or 16 quarters. Sorry, 8. Wow.
Four
I know what
4 quarters.
4 quadrants, and each one is broken down into 4.
8 quarters might have to be our episode title. Yeah, so 4 quadrants with each divided into 4. So the first is another cut with the same Dawn Shard. So the change quarter or quadrant would be divided into the most unite like change, the most survive like change, and the changiest change. So it's sort of like the blending of each of the quarters, I think is what they're saying. Maybe the changiest change would be ruin. Change for the sake of change with no purpose. Cultivation fits perfectly with survive and change, but the problem is where to get opposites for ruin and preservation. So my brain is already sort of getting tangled in this mess.
Oh, it gets. I need to write this down to keep it all straight because it gets. Ugh. It's a lot.
So the second theory is that the second cut was done with anti-investiture channeled through the Dawn Shards. This way, each shard is a cross between a Dawn Shard and the opposite of a Dawn Shard. So we get change plus anti-survive, which could be ruin, and survive plus anti-change would be preservation. So that's how you end up with these opposites. Now, I don't know how well this works because Brandon has said there's not necessarily a diametrically opposed opposite for every shard.
Yeah.
You couldn't necessarily get a harmony for anything beyond preservation and ruin, essentially.
Yeah.
But he says the problem is what to do with change plus anti-change and the other 4 self-opposites. He calls it Cosmere philosophical Sudoku because I think we can put them in a grid and start solving for X. Now, that part is possible.
Yeah.
I think we could create a grid and start solving for X if we knew more of the larger
We need more variables that we need to know.
axes that we're working
axes?
on.
Look,
Sorry.
all I know is
I'm not a
Bill's
math
the man
major.
for the job. He's been playing a lot of Pictocross lately. He's got this.
Picross.
Oh, is
And
it
yes,
Picross?
Yeah, Picross.
Okay, I've been calling it Pictocross. Oh, because PictoChat is a level in Smash Brothers.
That's a completely different thing. But we also got an email on the similar topic from Jean-Marc. He says, love the show. Just wanted to drop you a concise email about the theory at the end of your last show. I like that he calls out concise because we specifically asked for that. He says, regarding the ominous words in caps that we've seen throughout the books, there is actually one more that we left out besides survive, unite, and change. That would be from our favorite Cosmere puppy, Nightblood, with destroy. A great addition to round up the 4 Dawn Shards, and also fits well with my theory that Nightblood was made using a Dawn Shard command. It would explain very well why he's so powerful and different from even other Type 4 invested entities. This interested me. That's a very interesting concept. I haven't really thought of destroy, because I would have thought of destroy potentially as a subset of change. But destroy is like complete removal, while change is an evolution. So it could
Yeah, I mean,
work.
you could mince words exactly how destroy would apply, but change and destroy are not equivalent that way. Yeah.
Right. And the theory specifically, though, that Nightblood was made using a Dawn Shard command. That gets the gears of my head spinning because
Yeah.
that actually does make sense. I can't say that that's the way it went, but I can't say that I like it.
It also, in this, obviously a can of worms, but the idea of trying to give a Dawn Shard a level of sentience would make sense with the sort of what we know that I forget what her name was.
Hazir?
It was Vasher's the woman he loved that was the one that made Night.
Shashara?
I
have forgotten her name. That's terrible.
But she seems like the exact type of reckless scientist that would experiment with a Dawn Shard.
Yes. No, that actually makes sense. So perhaps we've seen two Dawn Shards. One of them is... That's... Oh, man. Shashara is...
Sure.
Is
Okay.
The other thing is it would also
scholar.
explain why Nightblood is able to kill a vessel.
Well, part of that's just he's been around long enough and sucking up investiture and so.
But even with that, they have infinite power and stuff like that. But a Dawn Shard was specifically strong enough to, to divide ad nauseam.
Well, the other thing is it makes sense because a lot of it just seems that Nightblood is far too powerful for having only been invested with 1,000 breaths.
I think it was more than 1,000, wasn't it?
It was 1,000.
So it is 1,000.
He was created with 1,000 breaths. And, he seems overly powerful. And so if there's a Dawn Shard involved with it, it makes so much more sense.
Yeah. Well, let's say the number was 1 million breaths. Forget the actual number. Even still, it's like, is the breath of 1 million mortals strong enough for this? Oh, well, he's killed and absorbed a lot in the meantime. Okay, let's say he's killed another 4 million. We're not even close to a country, like a modern country, let alone a planet, let alone a god.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, so the numbers at this point don't even really make sense or matter in comparison to all these other things.
Right. Perforate Moash in chat. Yes, that's the somebody's name, and it cracks me up. Mentions, wouldn't the Amiens be all over that though? That's a good point.
Or
because
Nightblood being a Dawn Shard.
Yeah, the Dysian Amiens.
If they know
just
it's
because,
there.
But yeah,
And we don't know. Maybe they're just keeping tabs.
Right.
We don't know.
I mean, because the other thing is they're protecting. Nightblood protects himself. Like Nightblood is very much his own security system.
Yep.
So it might just be a matter of, okay, you know what? We'll let this go around because honestly, can you think of a better, more protected place for it? Anybody who has any desire to use Nightblood for selfish services will kill themselves with him. That seems pretty secure. I don't know. And who knows if this is accurate or not. I like the theory.
It's not something I had considered, and
Yeah,
it's
I
worth
hadn't
exploring.
thought of that.
Absolutely. We love hearing from our listeners, so please keep sending us questions. You can ask us about the Cosmere. You can drop us your ideas for topics that you'd like for us to discuss during the show. We've actually, next week, will be a topic that was suggested by one of our listeners. We'll get to that at the end of the episode. And while you're at it, we'd love to hear your feedback about how you think we're doing. Tell us any interesting theories you might have about what's going on in the Cosmere. Send all questions and suggestions in a brief, concise email to cosmerestudies@gmail.com, and we could read it as part of the show. If you would prefer to send us a physical letter, we do have a P.O. Box at the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, P.O. Box 970063, Orem, Utah 84097. honestly, people don't write enough physical letters anymore, and it's just nice to get them in the mail. So we do each have our own personal projects. So Jordan, why don't you start off and tell us where we can find you and what you're up to?
You can always find me on twitch.tv/splicestream, and there's some interesting things going on. We have been moving towards more variety version of our stream after a while. We've been doing Amiibo stuff almost exclusively for about a year. But now on Mondays, we're going to be doing Minecraft. We have our own little server, and I am building an evil lair. It's going to require just so much glass. Why do I do these things to myself? But so that's on Mondays. So if you ever want warm-ups before our stream here, let's just come on over. I'll be building crap. Then on Tuesdays, this will be of interest to people who play Super Smash Brothers. I have formed something called the Amiibo Raid Boss Tower. Basically, I've had very good trainers of Amiibo make what's called a raid boss, basically an Amiibo that's designed to fight a human. And as you start at the base level of the tower, it has no stats. You're just fighting a basic, just a basic Amiibo that someone who's good at training these things has trained. And then if you beat it, you move up the tower. And so it's a challenge. It's inspired sort of by Ninja Warrior. We actually, I needed Bill, and Bill tested it out. Bill, how hard are these things to beat?
I just got my butt handed to me.
They're very difficult.
I don't claim to be an amazing smasher. I'm very middling.
No, well, I've jokingly in the past referred to Bill as the standard unit of Smash, because Bill, no matter how good our Smash group got, Bill was always in the middle. As it improved, Bill was still the exact middle, and so I used him as my my bellwether for to start this, and it didn't disappoint. Bellwether, ooh, yes. You punned yourself. But yeah, so on Tuesdays, definitely show up. If you'd like to try that challenge, show up, and you'll have a chance to get in. Twitch.tv/splicestream. Nice.
Amy, how about you? What's up?
So my Facebook is Coincidence Cosplay and Props. My Twitter is @CoincidenceCosp. My Instagram is @coincidence_cosplay. My websites, my sad neglected one is www.coincidencecosplay.com, and my one that I'm trying to sell things on is etsy.com/shop/coincidencecosplay. And I have my Miss Cloak up there now. I have an apron with an evil queen on it. I have lots of dice on there. Go look at it. It's cool. And it would be appreciated. And let's see. And very soon I will actually put things on my TikTok, which is Coincidence Cosplay. So we'll see how that goes. And my husband's website, if you like Magic the Gathering and you want to be supportive and all that jazz, is deckplan.io. So you can build decks for Magic the Gathering. But right now, for what I'm putting up as content, what I'm doing is I'm still resting my wrist more, and I'm trying to get my 3 costumes ready for FanX in September, which I'm going to do a Loki variant. I'm going to do a generic-ish D&D rogue with my backpack dragon that I built, and I'm going to do a Twi'lek smuggler. So we're going to see how that goes. Cool. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Awesome. As for myself, I have another podcast with my buddy Dylan. We talk about board games on a podcast called The Innkeeper's Table, and we have new episodes come out Friday mornings. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we had a really huge announcement, and I'm still kind of giddy about it. We are now officially part of the Dice Tower Network. If you're familiar with board games and board game podcasts, the Dice Tower is one of the biggest ones out there. They've got videos and podcasts and all sorts of stuff. But they have the Dice Tower Network that includes where they have podcasts from other people, and they invite, and there's a lot of cross promotion and stuff like that. This is the big one, and we got invited to join, and it's just really exciting. So y'all should check that out. Our most recent episode, we actually kind of did our on-podcast announcement and celebration with where we talked about other board game content creators that we enjoy. And then our next episode, we did a game spotlight on Dylan's favorite game, which is Rising Sun. It was loosely inspired by Dominion, but or not Dominion, by Diplomacy. And
the best game to help you lose friends. It's incredible.
And there's a lot of negotiating. It's in feudal China, and just really.
This version doesn't make you lose
feudal
friends,
China,
right?
feudal Japan. I apologize. Wow. Brain.
This one doesn't make you lose friends. It's diplomacy that makes you lose
It depends on how you play it. I also have several board game reviews over at www.innkeeperstable.com, and I occasionally post about games on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at @InnkeepersTable. For those of you who want to support the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, but you can't become patrons, we would love it if you just let your friends know about the show, spread the word. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, so like and subscribe over on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. And we'd love it if you would toss us a good review wherever you listen to us, Apple Podcasts or wherever. And we'd really appreciate it. That'd be awesome. Any final thoughts now on the Heralds?
So now I really want to do one of the female Heralds as a cosplay, but that's going to have to happen like next year. But that's I'm now looking at the art again. I'm like, dang it, I really want to do that.
The artwork on the Heralds is so good.
Stunning.
It's super
absolutely
pretty.
Stunning. Like I said, the only one we don't have an in-world depiction of is Batar. But yeah, it's just
who's the one in green
pretty.
Again? Is that Pylea?
That's Palea.
Palea, yeah. She like the artwork on her in particular, it's just like, dang, that is good.
Yeah, that one, and it started out, it was only digital too.
Yeah, it was originally digital.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was only digital because that particular artist, and then they had it transferred so that there was an oil one made by someone local. Was it Howard Lyon? Was it?
I'm not sure who it was, but
it was a local artist that they had take the digital and make it a physical one because Brandon wanted a physical one.
Yeah, they commissioned a local artist, and the artist was like, I haven't copied anyone else's art since art school because
it's like what? What was the other one they did? But
they did it in oil, so.
Yes, I'm. Which other painting was it?
I'm not sure.
I thought she did two of them.
I honestly don't know.
Sorry,
I knew about Palea,
Palea,
but I wasn't.
I didn't know that was originally. That's incredible.
Yeah. It was crazy. It might have been Nail, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Nails is really good too. And
Nails is really cool.
I want to know how
it's
he got
so pretty.
That's my thought. I want to know how Nail got that scar.
Oh yes. You want to know how he got these scars?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, good. You caught what I was going for there. That's good.
Special thanks to our patron producer, Mims Laundry Service, experts on dirty laundry, both literal and metaphorical, since redacted. In addition to the live episodes of the show that stream on twitch.tv/InnkeepersTable every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, listeners can find our videos on YouTube or audio versions of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and just about any other service that carries podcasts by searching for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the profile @Cosmere Studies. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions for the show, email them to cosmerestudies@gmail.com. For our next episode, we're going to be discussing intent with a capital I and the role it plays in the magic systems of the Cosmere. This topic was actually suggested by Alfonsina, one of our listeners and patrons. So make sure to be here for the live recording on July 26, 2021. We're recording a week earlier than normal at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern at www.twitch.tv/InnkeepersTable. We're recording the episode a week earlier than normal, but the recordings will be released on our normal schedule on August 2nd. Until then, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember, there's always another secret.